US President Donald Trump says farmers from South Africa will be offered a rapid pathway to American citizenship following his executive order that pauses all federal aid to the country. This as Trump and Elon Musk have criticized South African officials for a new law they argued discriminates against white farmers. In a post on social media, Klerk Foundation, who is the executive director at the FW Klerk Foundation, expressed shock and said farmers are being used for cheap politicking. Van der Riede joins us now to talk about this comment as well as President Trump's offer. Thank you so much for your time on the program. So let's start here. What do you make of Donald Trump's offer to farmers?
It's quite concerning. Many young people and some are our farmers, and many other professionals, whether they're black, white, brown, they have been in America for the past 3 decades, working there and so forth, and contributing to the American economy. But of late, we've seen Donald Trump premises his announcements and executive orders based on misinformation, based on misconstruing, the challenges of South Africa. The challenges that we face are not limited just to white people. All of us are affected by crime, by unemployment, by ill-conceived policies, especially economic policies, and the many other challenges that we face. And that's why I've said this is very dangerous, it's cheap politicking, and it will cause great harm to the South African economy and to the South African agricultural fraternity. We don't need this.
And we've seen Trump's utterances and subsequently, of course, some of the executive orders that also came in the past weeks or months or so. Let's hear from you on what you think this really is, and right now what you think a possible way forward would be, especially when we look at the relations with South Africa and the US at this particular point in time.
I think this is part of a broader ethnic nationalist revival. We've seen it happening in the USA, we've seen it happening in France, in Hungary, and many European states. And obviously, the right wing in South Africa has seen this as an opportunity to confront the non-racial democratic dispensation that was founded in 1994. And this is completely misaligned with what we strive for as South Africans. If you read the Constitution, it says South Africa belongs to all of the people that live in it. It talks about a non-racial society, non-sexist society. It talks about accountable government, responsive government. And those are the things that we as South Africans, as a collective, should challenge. It is not just a white problem, it's a South African problem, and we need to make the most of it. And then we need to stand against this type of idea of balkanizing South Africa, breaking it up into different parts. There's a part for white, there's a part for brown, there's a part for black. We fought for a unitary state, and a state where our diversities can be recognized, can be acknowledged, and those are the things that we should work on. Unfortunately, I think the right wing in South Africa is not doing us any favors. We must also remember, agriculture has seen tremendous growth the past 50 years. For the past 6 years, our exports to the rest of the world has doubled, and it has created a lot of jobs. It has ensured food security for all South Africans. And that's my dilemma with this type of utterance that is misplaced, because it talks about terrible things that are happening. The big question is, what are these terrible things?
And here's the thing, many of those utterances as well, Mr. Van der Riede, have been described as divisive as well. And I'm going to bring our viewers up to speed with the rest of your post, in which you actually said, I know many decent, hardworking and loyal farmers throughout South Africa, and they don't deserve to be subjected and exposed to this type of hysteria and utter nonsense. Let's hear from you in terms of what you feel or envision work on the ground would be, particularly when we look at a need, and that need would be for dialogue on the ground, just moving forward?
Yes, I think it's important that our political parties that they refrain from spewing all kinds of racial rhetoric, this and also very hateful and very divisive utterances, and I think that is where our president and our GNU must stand up and say enough is enough. I've worked in the agriculture sector for many years. I know the farmers. I know their contribution towards food security and our GDP. The goodwill amongst many farmers are great. Yes, you have some, like you have in any sector, that really don't belong there. But the majority of our farmers have done very well and have done a lot of good in the various communities that they work with, not only through creating jobs, but creating pre-primary schools, helping communities to survive COVID. I was instrumental in getting food from farmers to distribute to various communities. Our farmers continue to do so. Our farmers do a lot in terms of transformation. The wool growers in South Africa have 4,000 black farmers that are exporting wool to the USA. Grain South Africa has a massive program. Citrus growers and all of the other big growers. I serve on the Vine Academy in Upington, Kakamas, where we train young people in the art of verticulture. A massive amount of goodwill is being displayed, and it's all embedded within the values, the aspirations, and the ideals as they are outlined in our national constitution. And that's what we need. So who gives this small fringe group of right-wingers to go out there, who give them the right to go out there and badmouth South Africa, and at the end of the day, expose our farmers to hatred, expose our farmers to racial conflict. We don't need that. We need a united stance, and I want to emphasize that. We need a united stance, in terms of against crime and all of these other social issues that affect us, and I think our GNU and our president, as a leader of the GNU, is well placed to address these challenges that we face, and also to bring South Africans together to calm the waters, because the last thing that we need is for Trump mania to, at the end of the day, dictate the course or the future of South Africa. Trump will be there for another 3 or 4 years, but then what happens after that? If the political landscape changes. South Africans rely on each other, we need each other, and we need to work together as one.
And Mr. van der Riede, I know that so much has been said, particularly when we look at this debacle that continues to play itself right now in full view of the public, in the public domain as well. Let's just hear from you. Perhaps if you were to maybe put some glasses to look into the future, because you do mention that at some point Trump's administration will have to move, and shift and to another administration. What do you envisage is going to happen just going forward? Because these statements, first of all, as I've mentioned, have been labeled as divisive. And what are the after effects of it all when those in power have left office and those on the ground, who are the people that matters the most, are the ones that are left to deal with the effects and the impact of all of the confusion, as well as the mayhem in a way that was caused by those in power?
If we continue along this path of conflict, this path of ethnic rejuvenation almost, if we continue along this path of cutting aid to the rest of the world, it's going to result in conflict, it's going to result in racial conflict, even in civil conflict. It might lead to a World War III at the end of the day. And that is why it's so important that our political leaders have a long-term view, because we need a new world order where there is greater equality amongst people, where we unlock the value of our resources to the benefit of the greater society, of the greater good. We need to make sure that Africa takes ownership of its own future, that become less reliant on others to exploit our resources, export the capital, and our people remain trapped in poverty. And yes, this should serve as a wake-up call for South Africans, and more importantly, our political leaders, to take charge of our own future and our own destiny. And then to seek alliances with world leaders out there who share the same values, the same views in terms of a better world order that not only takes care of people, but takes care of the planet as well. Because this is the only place where we live. If this place is destroyed, then we have nowhere else to go. So I think we must have a long-term view, we must plan better, but more importantly, we must execute those plans. I think our biggest downfall is our inability to execute plans and to hold people accountable for not executing those plans. And yes, we must move away from this tick box exercise in terms of employment equity targets. That for me is a big frustration. We must employ the capacity of white, brown, black people. We must ensure that our people get the very best in terms of education, in terms of skills transfer, and we must make sure that we grow our economy through the establishment of small businesses, creating value chains. We currently export wool, our steel to the other places, especially China. It comes back as clothes, it comes back as metal bars, whatever you may call it. It comes back as cars. Now, we owe it to South Africans to create a more conducive policy environment so that investments locally and internationally is deployed to the benefit of South Africa. So that we grow the economy, because it's only through economic growth that we can solve our internal problems. But at the same time, I think we require political leadership that will put the country first and not political party interests or narrow-minded ethnic interests first.
And you also spoke about accountability. I'm going to ask you, how do we hold those who are responsible for, going on a campaign, if you may, or also spreading mis and disinformation around this accountable?
Look, South Africa has a constitution where free speech is guaranteed, and I don't think we must, cause at the end of the day, cause these people to become martyrs, because they are already disintegrating. We have seen various groups within that right-wing fringe group are now claiming to speak on behalf of all Afrikaners, which is a fallacy, which is not true, because the majority of people who call themselves Afrikaners, Afrikaans-speaking people, don't want to be associated with these fringe groups. So I'm saying, let them be. Let them do whatever they want to do. Let us not, at the end of the day, go against the very sound principle of freedom of speech as embedded in our national constitution. But we need leadership, because we can only counter their lies. We can only counter the disinformation that they spread through real action that are to the benefit of all South Africans. Our president, in his state-owned speech the other day, outlined a lot of very good plans. I want to see those plans coming to fruition, because that's through those plans that you can bind South Africans together and make sure that we then, at the end of the day, counter these lies that are being spread by fringe groups, because that's what they are. They are fringe groups.
All right, Mr. Christo van der Riede, thank you so much for your time. And he is, of course, the Executive Director at the FW de Klerk Foundation.